So, picture this. It's 1932, right? The banking system is basically collapsing. The whole country is in an absolute panic.
Right, the Great Depression.
Yeah, exactly. And the newly elected president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, does something that is just completely unthinkable. He goes completely silent.
Wow.
Yeah, he refuses to speak with the outgoing president. He won't outline his specific plans, and he essentially just goes into total retreat right before his inauguration.
Which is wild when you think about the pressure he must have been under.
Right. And today, for you listening, we're taking a deep dive into a collection of notes and sources that reveals why sometimes, like, the ultimate power move isn't shouting into the void, but just shutting your mouth entirely.
It really is a striking historical moment, and it perfectly captures the theme we're unpacking today.
Yeah, we've got some fascinating stuff to get through,
We really do. We're looking at this amazing synthesis of ancient Stoicism, modern business theory, and weirdly enough, even biomechanics.
which I cannot wait to get into.
Right. But the core mission here is to figure out how to navigate an inherently unfair world. And not by, putting up defensive armor, but by figuring out what is actually in our control when the environment around us is just spiraling.
And for you, the listener, whether you are dealing with a toxic workplace or a chaotic family situation or just feeling overwhelmed by the news cycle, this is really about finding a sense of unshakable ownership.
Exactly.
So we're going to explore this through a few different lenses, right? We're looking at taking action, the timing of that action, protecting your character, and ultimately the mechanics of letting go. So, okay, let's unpack this, starting with a phrase from Miguel de Cervantes.
Ah, yes. A closed mouth catches no flies.
Right. Now, usually we interpret that as, keep your head down and stay out of trouble. But these sources frame it entirely differently. It's actually a critique of complaining.
Yeah, it's pointing out the foolishness of the open mouth that just expects the universe to hear its grievances and, I don't know, magically fix the problem.
Because the universe rarely obliges.
Rarely, if ever. And the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this better than anyone. I mean, keep in mind, Epictetus wasn't some wealthy aristocrat writing poetry in a garden somewhere.
Right. He was a slave for part of his life.
Exactly. He intimately understood genuine suffering and the crushing weight of systemic unfairness. So his philosophy on this isn't just theoretical.
No, it's very lived in.
Yeah. He essentially asks, and the bluntness of this is just striking, why are you sitting around praying for your nose to stop running? You have hands.
Right. Just wipe your own nose.
Yes. Just wipe your nose and stop looking for a scapegoat.
Okay, I have to admit, I struggle with this a bit. And I imagine you, listening right now, might too.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. Because if someone is genuinely wronged, say, I don't know, passed over for a promotion they actually earned, or dealing with a system that is demonstrably rigged against them, telling them to just wipe their nose feels incredibly dismissive.
Oh, for sure.
It feels like we're just telling people to ignore real injustice.
And that raises an important question, right? It's the natural friction point with Stoicism. But author Ryan Holiday offers a really brilliant lens on this specific tension.
Okay, what does he say?
Well, he points out that your complaint might be 100% accurate. The game might actually be rigged. Your boss might truly be toxic.
Right, you're not making it up.
Exactly. But the question you have to ask yourself isn't whether your diagnosis of the situation is accurate. The question is whether that diagnosis is useful.
Oh, I see. Because, like, a perfectly accurate diagnosis of a broken leg doesn't actually heal the bone.
Precisely. Complaining, even when it's deeply justified, accomplishes nothing structurally. In fact, it actually works against you because it saps the emotional and physical energy you need to actually navigate the problem.
So you're draining your own reserves just to broadcast a grievance.
Right. And the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote about this urgency too, advising himself to get active in his own rescue while he still had the capacity to do so.
It's like a car engine trying to run while filled with sand.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, complaining is the sand. It doesn't matter how justified the sand is for being there, like maybe someone maliciously poured it in, but mechanically, the engine of your agency cannot turn over until you flush it out.
Well said.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because the sources pivot from ancient Rome right into the modern corporate boardroom.
Yeah, this is such a fascinating jump.
They bring in management thinker Peter Drucker and Jan Carlson, who orchestrated the massive turnaround of Scandinavian Airlines.
Sass.
Yeah. And they argue that agency, this whole ability to wipe your own nose, isn't just a solo character trait you summon through sheer willpower. It's actually structural.
That's the systemic side of the equation. Carlson has this great rule. An individual given information cannot help but take responsibility.
Wait, walk me through the mechanics of that. Why does just having information force someone to act differently?
Well, it removes the psychological shield of plausible deniability. Think about it. If you're an employee and you don't know the company's financial realities or the specific metrics of your department, you can easily say, well, that's management's problem. That's above my pay grade.
Right, you're shielded by your own ignorance.
Exactly. But Drucker noted that once a professional is handed the real data, the actual P&L, the customer feedback, that shield just vanishes. You can no longer pretend you don't see the leak in the boat.
Wow. So good systems don't just demand agency from their people, they supply the information that makes apathy impossible.
You nailed it.
That makes total sense. And it ties beautifully into what Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins say about goal setting. Ron points out that you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight.
Yes, the 1-degree shift.
Exactly. It's just a 1-degree shift. You don't have to overhaul the entire toxic company culture today or fix the rig system by tomorrow. You just have to look at the information, grab a bucket, and make a 1-degree shift in your own behavior.
Because sustained over time, that tiny shift changes your ultimate landfall.
Right. So if agency is about taking that action, that kind of forces a question about timing. Like, why take action today instead of tomorrow?
Yeah, why did Marcus Aurelius specify getting active in your own rescue while you still can?
Right. And this brings us to the Stoic obsession with mortality, which sounds incredibly grim at first.
Very grim.
But it's actually the engine for their entire philosophy.
It is. To understand their urgency, we really have to look at the existential baseline of the ancient world. I mean, Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man on the planet, but he lived in a Roman era where infant mortality was somewhere between 25 and 30%.
That is just staggering.
Surviving childhood was literally a coin toss. And even as an adult emperor, a simple cut on your hand could lead to a fatal infection in a matter of days.
Right. No antibiotics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the raw statistical reality was that every single human life was a profound improbability.
So your mere existence is a statistical anomaly. And the sources connect this ancient existential reality to something incredibly unexpected.
Modern indie rock.
Yes. Modern indie rock. There's a lyric from the band Gang of Youths that modernizes this Stoic concept just perfectly.
Whoa, it's such a good lyric.
They sing about human existence being a random disclosure of grace from some vascular great thing.
Yeah.
And they followed up with this plea, do not let your spirit wane.
What's fascinating here is how that raw, visceral language completely mirrors the formal advice of the Stoic philosopher Seneca.
Right.
Seneca argued that because the entire future is fundamentally uncertain, you must live immediately. Postponing your life, waiting for the perfect job, the perfect relationship, the day when the unfairness finally stops, it's a rejection of that improbable grace.
Which brings in a really profound concept from Josh Waitzkin.
The chess prodigy.
Right, the guy whose life inspired with it. Searching for Bobby Fischer, and he later became a martial arts champion. Waitzkin has this concept where he says, deep flow is the ultimate therapy. And I had to stop and reread that because we usually think of a flow state as like a Silicon Valley productivity hack.
Right. Putting on noise-canceling headphones to finally clear out your inbox.
Exactly. But Waitzkin elevates it. He isn't talking about answering emails.
No, he's talking about a healing state. When you're in deep flow, completely absorbed in a complex task, whether that's painting, coding, or even just having a deeply engaged conversation, you are an antidote to drift.
An antidote to drift. I love that.
You're anchoring yourself in the present moment. By giving a task your absolute, undivided attention, you are actively honoring the miraculous fact that you're alive to experience it.
Okay, but it's easy to be in a perfect flow state when you're alone in a room, right?
Yeah.
The real test is what happens when someone shatters that peace.
Oh, absolutely. When the outside world intrudes.
Yeah. When you step outside and a driver cuts you off, or a colleague steals your credit on a project, when the ugliness of the world actively intrudes on your presence.
And that intrusion is guaranteed. Ryan Holiday points out that injustice is practically the baseline setting of human interaction.
Sad but true.
People will cut corners, they will lie, they will abuse their power. But Marcus Aurelius offers a defense against this with a really arresting claim. He wrote, "No one can implicate me in ugliness."
I love that phrasing. Implicate me.
Right.
It implies that toxicity requires your active participation.
What's fascinating here is that if we connect this to the bigger picture, Aurelius is highlighting the critical asymmetry of injustice.
Okay, break that down. What do you mean by asymmetry?
Well, a corrupt person can do real damage to you externally. They can take your property, they can ruin your reputation, they can fire you unjustly.
Very tangible damage. Yes.
But the asymmetry is that they cannot force you to mirror their behavior. They cannot reach inside your mind and force you to become vindictive or cruel or petty. Your character remains entirely self-contained.
Oh, there is an amazing historical anecdote about Epictetus that illustrates this perfectly.
Yeah.
So one night, a thief breaks into Epictetus's home and steals his iron lamp.
A classic story.
Yeah. Now, for most of us, if someone breaks into our house and steals from us, our blood pressure spikes. We feel violated, we want revenge, we want justice.
Truly.
But Epictetus's reaction, he just decides that tomorrow he's going to go to the market and buy an earthenware lamp, a cheaper clay one.
Just moves right on.
Yeah. He reasoned that a man can only lose what he actually possesses, and his character was never stolen, just a piece of metal.
It's the ultimate unshakable ownership, and the sources extend this by connecting it to one of the greatest moments in literature. Victor Hugo's Les Miserables.
Oh, yes.
Holiday compares Epictetus's stolen lamp to that famous scene where the bishop catches Jean Valjean stealing his silver candlesticks.
And the bishop doesn't just let him go. He actually covers for him with the police and gives him the silver.
Right. He tells Valjean to use the silver to become an honest man. The bishop's character is so heavily fortified against the outside world that a literal crime committed against him doesn't degrade him.
Wow.
In fact, his refusal to be implicated in that ugliness turns the theft into the very instrument of the thief's redemption.
Okay, so that's a beautiful literary example, and the lamp is a great ancient story, but I want to bring this back to the real world, to FDR in 1932.
Right, where we started?
Yeah. As we mentioned at the start, the country is in a catastrophic depression. Hoover is still the sitting president, begging FDR to make a joint statement to calm the markets. And FDR refuses.
Completely isolates himself.
Right, until Inauguration Day. And then he launches the explosive historic action of the first 100 days. Now, I read that and I immediately have pushback.
Let's hear it.
Refusing to talk to the sitting president during a national crisis doesn't sound like stoic containment to me. It sounds like a ruthless PR stunt. I mean, was he actually practicing stoicism or just letting his political opponent sink to make himself look like a savior later?
It's a totally fair critique. And historian Robert Greene certainly notes the theatrical timing of it. FDR was a master politician, no doubt.
Right.
But regardless of his internal political calculus, the behavioral mechanism he employed is exactly what we are talking about. FDR realized that the environment in Washington was purely chaotic and reactionary.
It was a mess.
Exactly. And if he stepped into Hoover's mess before he had actual structural power, he would be implicated in that ugliness. He'd just be reacting to someone else's panic.
Oh, I see.
By staying silent, he governed from his own center. When he finally acted, it was entirely on his own terms, with his own agency.
He didn't let the sand into his engine.
Precisely. And author Simon Sinek frames this beautifully for modern leadership. Sinek says that in any organization, a good idea can easily be destroyed by bad people.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. But good people, people with contained character, can take a flawed idea and make it better. Character is the only variable that actually survives a corrupted environment.
So if character is the fortress that protects us from external enemies, that leaves us with one final massive problem.
The internal enemy.
Exactly. How do we protect ourselves from the internal poison we generate? When someone wrongs us, even if we don't retaliate externally, we often boil internally. We hold a grudge.
Which brings us to the final concept, the absolute necessity of release.
And we return to Cervantes.
Right, who noted that hatred is a curse that does not actually affect the hated, it only injures the hater.
So dropping a grudge isn't about being a saint. It's not about sentimental forgiveness or being the bigger person just for the sake of politeness.
Not at all.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It is rigorous, calculated self-interest. You drop the grudge because holding on to it is physically destroying you.
We see this historical logic with Marcus Aurelius again. His most trusted general, Avidius Cassius, staged a massive rebellion to usurp the throne.
A huge betrayal.
A profound personal and political betrayal. Yet Marcus chose to forgive him and explicitly forbade his allies from seeking bloody revenge.
Wow.
Not because Cassius deserved a pardon, but because Marcus refused to let his own soul be corroded by the acid of vengeance.
Wow.
And we see the exact same mechanism millennia later with Martin Luther King Jr., who faced horrific systemic abuses. MLK famously said, I have decided to stick with love because hate is too great a burden to bear.
I want to focus on that word, burden. It implies physical weight.
It is a physical weight. The Stoics understood that hate and resentment consume massive amounts of energy. And remember our first premise.
Taking action and wiping your own nose requires energy.
Exactly.
Yep.
If you're hauling around the heavy, invisible baggage of a grudge, you simply don't have the fuel left for agency or presence.
And this is where the sources pull everything together into a brilliant, unexpected synthesis using, of all things, biomechanics.
Yes.
They introduced Dr. Ed Thomas's concept of joint integrity and movement efficiency. Now, I'll be honest, when I first read that, I was lost. Like, what does joint integrity have to do with ancient stoicism and letting go of a grudge? Walk us through the mechanics of this.
It's actually a perfect physical metaphor for everything we've discussed.
Okay.
In biomechanics, if you want to hold a heavy weight, say a 50-pound kettlebell overhead, you have to lock your joints. You stack the bones of your wrist, elbow, and shoulder in a perfectly straight line.
Right, structural support.
Right. When your skeletal structure is perfectly aligned, the bones support the weight, and your muscles can actually relax. That is joint integrity.
But if your arm is slightly bent?
Exactly. If your elbow is even slightly bent, the structural integrity is broken. The bones can't hold the weight, so your muscles have to take over.
And they're going to burn out.
Within minutes, your muscles will scream fatigue and fail. You'll drop the weight. Carrying a grudge or fighting an unfair reality instead of accepting it is exactly like holding a heavy weight with a bent elbow.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
It is constant, agonizing muscular strain. You are literally fighting gravity.
So what does this all mean when we map it back to Josh Waitzkin's idea of deep flow?
Deep flow is the psychological equivalent of locked joints. It is perfect alignment with zero wasted energy. Think about the 4 elements we've covered today.
Okay.
When you stop complaining and take action, you have agency. When you focus entirely on the task in front of you, honoring the miracle of your existence, you have presence.
Right.
When you refuse to let toxic people alter your behavior, you have character. And when you drop the exhausting grudge, you have release.
Wow. So when those 4 things align,
The psychological elbow locks, the muscular strain of anxiety and anger vanishes, you're operating with absolute efficiency.
that is an incredible way to visualize it. Flow isn't just a way to work faster. It is the examined life, fully inhabited without strain.
Perfectly said.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to address you, the listener, as you head back into whatever chaos your day holds. The final takeaway from these sources is about what they call the public service of being well.
It's a great concept.
Ryan Holiday notes that we live in a world filled with cheats, cowards, and a lot of decent but incredibly busy people who just keep their heads down.
And in that kind of environment, finding your own alignment isn't just a private self-improvement project. It's an act of leadership.
Right. Tying it back to Simon Sinek and the Bishop from Les Miserables, when you maintain your character in a corrupted system, you open a path for others.
By refusing to go dark, you prove to everyone watching that not everyone is afraid. You provide a tangible example that a different way of operating is actually possible.
You show them that the sand doesn't have to stay in the engine.
Exactly.
The closed mouth we started with, it isn't just about keeping the flies out. It's a commitment to what you refuse to let inside your mind.
That's the real power.
Which leaves us with a final lingering question to turn over in your head today. If dropping a grudge and refusing to mirror the world's ugliness is ultimately the best way to preserve your own energy and stay in flow, is there really any such thing as altruism? Or are the most forgiving, seemingly saintly people in our lives actually just the most fiercely and intelligently self-protective?